I just want to bring in Dale and Nikki at this point. Dale, what's your take on the Labour reshuffle?
It looked good to me. You know, I think what Keir said about putting his strongest team on the pitch for the election, I think that's what it said to me. When I looked at the players there, I think Angie's a force of nature. I look at that as a promotion. I think that's a smart move to put her in that role for levelling up. You know, there was nothing not to like about it. I don't understand all the language around Blairites and stuff like that. I really don't get that. All of that kind of factional stuff that the media tries to big up. I'm not sure that it really exists. So for me, that was, you know, not happening.
And you must be pleased to see Ed Miliband staying in post as well.
Yeah, Ed is fantastic at his job. I mean, he's passionate about net zero and green energy. So I think he's the best man for the job. I think Keir got it right.
What was your take on Waz's comments there as well, saying that actually it's fair enough that Keir Starmer has been moving the party towards the centre, making it more electable? Well,
I think it's the kind of aim of all political parties, isn't it, to be electable? And if that means you have to move to the centre, then that means you're listening to voters. So I don't see an issue with that at all.
And what issues for you? I mean, the environment, I guess, is what we're expecting you to say.
I think absolutely the environment, net zero, you know, avoiding the worst of the climate crisis, these things absolutely. But inherent in that is the economy. You know, our country's on its knees. A poll published by Lord Ashcroft just a couple of days ago, and he's a Tory as well as a pollster, says that 70% of the public think that Britain is broken. Another 97% think that public services have got worse. And an overwhelming majority think this government is corrupt. We're in a mess. But what I wanted to say was that the economy is at the heart of all of the green measures that we need to undertake. If we invest in green energy, we get twice as much GDP growth as if we invest in fossil fuels, and 2.5 times as many jobs. And so the answer to all of the problems we face actually is a green transition.
Do you fear that net zero is going to be rowed back on by both sides? Because, you know, you've seen, for example, controversy over the ULEZ. You've seen people saying, look, we love the idea of going green, but right now we've got to focus on cost of living.
Yeah, I think it's a false narrative, because the cost of living crisis that we have is driven partly by the cost of fossil fuels and our absolute dependence on them. And the sooner we get off them, the better off we'll be. We can drive energy prices back down to a price they haven't been in for probably 10 years. If we make the switch to 100% green energy, we can grow our economy, create millions of jobs. We can do all of that kind of stuff and fight the climate crisis and make people better off. That's why it's a false narrative for Rishi Sunak and others to say we can't afford the green transition.
Keir Starmer on ULEZ. Were you disappointed about that?
Well, no, I wasn't disappointed. Do you know what I think? I think both parties came away from that by-election and said, oh, it must have been the ULEZ, right? And the Tories held the seat by 495 votes. Tony Blair never won that seat in his pomp. He never did, right? It's a solid Tory seat. So why do 495 votes mean it was a ULEZ issue? I don't believe it. We've commissioned some polling. We'll have results in a few weeks. Neither party has polling. Neither party has data, just anecdotes from doorsteps. So we're going to have a look at that.
Are watching the Politics Hub. We are joined again by Dale and Nikki. Dale, I know you were itching to say a few things before that break, so it's time now to get it off your chest.
Thank you. Busting. I was busting to say something because I listened to that very carefully, and all I could hear was a refusal to take responsibility from both Conservatives in the room, and no disrespect. Because Gillian contradicted herself, actually. You must have noticed. She said this was new evidence in the summer, and then she said it's been a problem since 1994.
Oh, that's rubbish, Dale.
That's what she said.
No,
that's what she said. Play the tape back. That's what she said.
She...
Let me finish anyway. It's my chance to speak. I won't interrupt you, I promise.
I'll give you a chance.
Well, I will come back on this because I think that's very unfair.
And why do we have to wait until there's a crisis in our schools before we properly fund them? The end point being made was, look, it needs funding, we're going to have to do it. Well, Rishi Sunak knew that it needed funding 2 years ago when he was Chancellor. The DfE made what they said was a very good case, a well-argued case, to fund the repairs of 300 or 400 schools every year. He promised to do 100 and then cut the budget to 50 when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. The Tories have left this until the last minute. And this idea of new evidence in the summer, I'm not buying it. What new evidence? There was a school roof in Kent in 2018 that collapsed and would have killed people had they been in the room. It collapsed over a weekend. So the unreliability of this material and the fact that it doesn't give warning signs before it collapses has been known for 5 years. So this last-minute new evidence, followed by a holiday, as you pointed out, I'm just not buying any of it. Why is it the first day of a return to school that 150 schools can't open?
Nikki.
Well, I think it's easy to say that if you've not been a Secretary of State making those kinds of decisions and actually being responsible for talking to the Treasury about trying to extract money from them, which is no easy process.
Also, West Ruter didn't commit to more money either, did he?
They didn't. But funding under the last Labour government, capital spending was twice as high.
My answer, my time to reply.
I'm answering Sophie. Twice as high under a Labour government. Twice as high.
Well, OK, so the fact is, at the moment, Gillian's done, as I say, she's done the right thing, the only thing that a Secretary of State could do when safety is paramount, and say, actually, now the timing may be terrible, and I completely understand for families and for the schools themselves, this is not good.
You guys are going to have to keep this going off air. You can go and chat off air, OK? Very lively discussion. Now we've had another apology this evening.